A blood-curdling scream pierced the tranquil air of the courtyards, shattering the peaceful evening. I sat alone in my dimly lit garage, savoring the twilight while nursing a bottle of beer, but my tranquility was short-lived. Once again, that which had plagued us for so long had snatched away another soul. And perhaps, I would be its next victim. But let us start from the beginning. I reside in a desolate suburban settlement, inhabiting a small 2-story house on the second floor. The studio apartment had been inherited from my brother, who had sought a new life in the city. The specifics of my living situation mattered little to me. All that truly mattered was having a roof over my head and the convenience of nearby amenities. Life should have been peaceful, were it not for the one thing that prowled the courtyards of our village. Inquire as you may, but the answer remains the same: no one cares. These intricacies do not burden the minds of the residents. Furthermore, our settlement teeters on the edge of becoming a ghost town, and I doubt anyone would lend a helping hand. What is this thing? You may ask. If I possessed the ability to commune with the deceased, I could provide an answer, but alas, such a gift eludes me. There are, of course, those who claim to have caught sight of the monster, yet the confounding aspect lies in their varying descriptions. Some speak of a towering 2-meter alien made of steel, while others evoke images of a moth-like man or a chupacabra. The only consistent element in their accounts is the lingering stench of fish. It brings to mind the eerie marine aesthetics of Lovecraft's tales. However, our village lacks a nearby sea, only a decrepit river remains, devoid of life. Does that count? The when and how of this monstrous apparition's emergence elude us. People began vanishing abruptly, as if they had been swallowed by the very earth beneath their feet. They were presumed to have quietly departed, but to where, none could say. The notion of a cannibalistic maniac gained traction, only to prove fallacious. The river was scoured in search of answers, to no avail. Then, the most observant investigator, an old friend from my school days, made a peculiar observation. One evening, he came over to share a few beers and revealed more about his findings. Earlier that day, he had lingered near the river, wandering along its banks. Venturing further, where the waters grew deep and desolate, he sensed a presence surfacing from the murky depths. Though he failed to catch a glimpse, he was certain something substantial lurked within the waters, and it was unlike anything he had ever encountered. He refrained from divulging his encounter to anyone else. I was the first to hear his tale. From that evening onward, rumors about a monster swept through our village. The origin of these rumors remains a mystery, but it is often simpler to attribute inexplicable phenomena to otherworldly forces. How else could one rationalize the disappearances and the scent of fish that pervaded the air each morning? No other explanation seemed feasible. Furthermore, as time wore on, screams began to echo through the night. It became evident to all that this was no human malevolence at work but a true extraterrestrial evil. It may sound ludicrous and absurd, but that was our reality. We had unwittingly stepped into the pages of a macabre horror story. 10 individuals had vanished without a trace, making tonight the 11th. Most likely, I would become the 12th. The clattering sounds drew nearer, emanating from the courtyard. Concealed in the darkness of the garage, I dared not even breathe audibly. The TSK grew steadily louder, its approach inevitable. And then, before me stood the abomination. A colossal crustacean-like creature, devoid of a head, its pointed appendages resonating with a bone-chilling cacophony that reverberated through the surroundings. Its enormous claws, formidable crushers armed with gnashing teeth, clacked menacingly, occasionally striking something nearby. A hellish orange glow emanated from the cavity where its head should have been, pulsating with pale flesh that undulated and writhed, basking in the infernal light. Fragments of the victims' bodies protruded from its grotesque mass, evidence of those who still clung to life, their pleas for help drowned out by guttural growls. I know not what saved me in that harrowing moment, the pungent scent of gasoline and diesel fuel or perhaps the fickle favor of Lady Luck herself. The monster stood motionless for a brief moment before continuing on its sinister path. I remained ensconced in the garage until daybreak. As the first rays of sunlight pierced the horizon, I returned to repairing my car, desperate to escape this cursed place. I shall seek refuge with my brother, dwelling in his abode until I can find a place of my own. Yes, that is the plan. I will somehow settle the affairs concerning this apartment, concoct a plausible excuse for moving away. But I refuse to remain here any longer, for I have beheld the creature that prowls the night, snatching souls with its merciless grip. Lily, an ordinary 16-year-old girl, held a skeptical stance when it came to eerie tales and the paranormal. But one fateful evening, under the influence of potent intoxication, her friend suggested they dabble in the supernatural by summoning the Queen of Spades. Reluctantly, I agreed to assist my girlfriend in proving the fallacy of it all. The two of us huddled around the mirror, the minutes ticking by in a peculiar silence. Eventually, we decided to retire for the night. However, as darkness blanketed the surroundings, every sound seemed magnified. Lily found herself unable to succumb to slumber, her senses on high alert. A rustle emanated from the direction of the bathroom, perhaps a figment of her imagination, she reasoned. Yet, her friend lay sound asleep beside her. Who, then, was the intruder? Lily rose from her bed, her feet guiding her towards the washroom. And then, she heard it, the creeping footsteps behind her, trailing her every move. It was as if someone, or something, was crawling relentlessly in pursuit. The narrative now shifts to the perspective of Kate, Lily's friend. Disturbed by Lily's screams emanating from the bathroom, I swiftly rose from my own slumber, propelled by equal parts concern and curiosity. My feet carried me with haste, ushering me towards the source of the commotion. But nothing could have prepared me for the sight that awaited me. There, perched upon the sink, sat Lily, her body convulsing with sobs. But it was not the act of weeping that struck terror deep within me. As Lily raised her head, I beheld a grotesque spectacle, a visage infested with writhing worms, devoid of eye sockets. A disfigured hand rose, or rather, what remained of it, as the abomination emitted an incoherent growl. In that horrifying moment, instinct took hold, propelling me to flee from the accursed abode. I sprinted to the nearest bar, seeking refuge in the comforting embrace of alcohol. I drowned my fears in yet another liter of beer until oblivion claimed me. When morning broke, I awoke to a throbbing headache, remnants of the alcohol-infused haze that enveloped me. As I stumbled into the empty bar, a sense of foreboding gripped my very core. The realization struck like a thunderbolt: something was amiss. The bar, known for its perpetual bustle, now stood bereft of any sign of life. My gaze lifted, and horror consumed me. Between the lifeless corpses strewn about, I glimpsed a figure, one I recognized all too well. It was Lily, or rather, what Lily had become. A monstrosity moved among the lifeless forms, inching closer with each torturous step. Sometimes, horror lurks in the ordinary, camouflaged amidst the tapestry of everyday life. Often, it remains imperceptible, particularly to children whose senses of danger are dulled, their awareness shielded from the true depths of fear. Only later, in the annals of time, does the true terror reveal itself, seeping into the cracks of our memories. I was a mere 5 years old when the incident occurred. It was the midst of a scorching summer, and I found myself visiting my grandparents in a quaint Ukrainian town. Days were filled with the blissful abandon of youth, endless hours bathed in sunlight, ripe fruits, the company of friends, and playful games. Oblivious to the shadows lurking in the periphery of adult consciousness, we frolicked, carefree and untouched. Yet, the adults whispered, their gazes drawn to a newspaper article that detailed the gruesome murder of a 16-year-old girl. 4 teenagers had callously pummeled her, their hands closing tightly around her throat, forever silencing her vibrant spirit. Only 2 of the perpetrators had been apprehended, but the chilling details that emerged during their interrogation were far more unsettling. They claimed their heinous act was driven by the malevolent demands of otherworldly entities. The remainder of the article was a jumble of disjointed information. If I were the meticulous journalist I am today, I would have posed countless questions. What scent clung to the air that day? What did they truly mean by spirits? How did their sinister communion transpire? Why did they choose this particular girl as their sacrificial offering? But back then, I was merely amused by the mention of a serious karate belt the girl possessed. I wondered how she, armed with the power of karate, had failed to defend herself against her assailants. In my youthful exuberance, I gravitated towards those older than me. That summer, my path frequently intersected with 2 inseparable comrades, let us dub them Ivan and Peter. We formed an unlikely bond, for the company of my peers held little allure. It was the older boys who captivated my imagination. One fateful day, a mysterious event transpired, etching itself into my memory, even as time eroded the finer details. We were strolling leisurely through the town when my grandmother, wearing an unusually solemn expression, approached Ivan and Peter. With measured gravity, she relayed the contents of the aforementioned article. Her words hung heavy in the air, casting an ominous pall over our innocent camaraderie. The boys nodded, their eyes downcast, absorbing her admonishment. And then, as abruptly as the dark clouds gathered, my grandmother departed. Returning to me, my friends exchanged an enigmatic glance, as if a secret pact had been forged between them. And then, as if summoned by an invisible force, a gust of wind swept through our midst. Ivan, his gaze ascending towards the heavens, spoke with an inexplicable reverence. "Forgive us, spirits. We believe in you. We deceived her." To this day, the memory sends a shiver down my spine, even though I dare not claim that my current fears hold any semblance of truth. They reside in the recesses of my mind, the vestiges of a time when innocence danced hand in hand with the enigmatic forces that haunt our world.